Um, we are in the process of revising the Putnam County Comprehensive Plan, which is the land, it's the guidepost, it's the foundation for the future for Putnam County. It involves all sorts of different things, including our land use, our infrastructure, our housing, and many, many different elements that go into the future of Putnam County. And the plan that we're working on right now will take us through the year 2035. So we are very, very glad to have you with us and to share your thoughts. There are a couple of people I want to introduce. Mike Brown is the Director of Planning and Development for Putnam County. He is our fearless leader. And not on screen, but with us and making sure we don't do anything wrong is Nancy Brown, who is Mike's assistant. We also have with us Brian Teeple, who is the principal consultant with Kimley Horn and Associates out of Jacksonville. And they are working with us to help us put together the final document that will be suitable to submit to the state. First to submit to the county commission and then to the state for approval. We're looking at an October 1st date to submit the document into the county commission. I want to have it in the hands of the chairman of the county commission by October 1st. That is the goal he set, not me. And we are going to be working with the county commission at that point through getting this adopted. Following this, we're also going to be addressing the revisions needed to the Putnam County Land Development Code, which is all about zoning and all of the regulations that are required to develop a piece of property or to use a piece of property. So I'd like to ask Mike if he would say a few words about his role in this and get us started.
Well, good evening. Again, Mike Brown, Planning Manager. I oversee all the long range and short range planning in the county. And this is an effort that actually didn't result from an impetus of staff, but it was a push by the county commission, recognizing that our existing comp plan needed to be updated. It was last updated in 2010. We've had a few updates, a few land use changes and other statutory changes over the years, but taking an entire comprehensive look at the comp plan and the future land use map and suggesting changes on a wholesale value hasn't been done since 2010. A lot of things have changed in the county, including, and not least of which, the county now has water and sewer, which they did not have in 2010. So that's one of the things we need to address, and in the process of addressing. So really, I mean, the goal of tonight is to obtain input and from the participants, from the public, on what's working for you in the comp plan or what's not, what changes would you like to see? We're looking at, we have a planning horizon of 2035. So we're looking at basically the next 15 years. What do you think the county's going to look like? And although your comp plan doesn't guarantee that you will get development, it sets the framework, as the chairman said, and hopefully facilitates the right development that we want in Putnam County. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mike. Brian.
Yes, ma'am.
As our consultant, please give us your thoughts on where we are and what we need to be doing and your role.
Sure. The comprehensive plan has 9 elements, and the comprehensive plan sets really forth the what. What are the policies, the general policies that relate to land use, growth and development and infrastructure, housing, conservation, and all of those elements for Putnam County into the future. as Mike mentioned, your next step will be to deal with your land development regulations, and that's really how. How do we translate the general policies in the comprehensive plan into operational standards, so when you go to do something with your property, you know what is required of you to move forward. We are about halfway through the process of looking at the goals, objectives, and policies through the Planning Commission. And as the chair said, the goal, it's not a goal, the deadline to get this into the hands of the Board of County Commissioners is October 1. One of the things I want to mention, and Mike touched upon it, even though the planning horizon here is 2035, it does not mean that the plan is set in concrete. Should changes or needs for changes in the comprehensive plan arise between now and that date, clearly Putnam County has the ability to amend the plan as they see necessary. And in fact, the state requires you every 7 years to step back and take a look at the plan and determine, as Mike has said, to take a look at it holistically or what changes you need to make. But you can make changes to your plan at any time for any good public purpose. We are happy to be here to help Putnam County. I've spent 40 years in the public sector working with local governments. This is my first foray in the private sector doing consulting, but I'm very happy to work with Putnam County. I know Putnam County very well and have worked with them for many, many years. And with that, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. The different things that we look at with the Putnam County Comprehensive Plan are land use, and that's one of the biggest areas where we define how our land is going to be used over the course of the next 15 years. I know you can't see it very well, but I'm holding up a copy of the current future land use map for Putnam County. Ultimately, this map will be amended toward the end of the process that we're undergoing, so we can define how the land should be used based on your input, based on governmental regulations that we have to follow, and based on just sound practices that we need. What has been expressed to us by our two previous forums and by the members of the County Commission who have spoken with me is that we want to maintain the rural flavor of our community, but we also want to foster development in a planned, organized way. So that's the future land use is the huge one. The other elements are transportation, housing, infrastructure, things like the water and sewer system, solid waste management, anything that goes on underneath the ground or above the ground to make things happen. Conservation, recreation and open space, intergovernmental cooperation between interlocal agreements between the four municipalities, and the county and all the other communities, and also between other state and local agencies. Capital improvements, which of course is the expenditure of money to make Putnam County appealing. And finally, economic development, which is where everything comes to. If we want to grow this county, we've got to have a strong economic base. If we have a strong economic base, we are growing this county. So it's a cycle. So with that said, I know that all of you, all but one of you, are here because we're talking about the land use. And I appreciate John Newbold taking the leadership on this and getting you all together so that you could express your concerns, your thoughts, your feelings, and help us with what we need to do. So I'm going to turn it over to individuals. We're going to talk about what you want us to hear. And I think it will give you a chance to share your ideas, your suggestions, your concerns, and your recommendations. With that said, I'm going to ask Mr. Newbold if he would start us off.
Okay, I'm going to introduce a few of these people. One of them I'd like to introduce is in Laramie, Wyoming. JR, can you hear me? Okay, that's my son. He just happens to be on vacation, so, and maybe his brother will join us too. We also have Steve Malford. Steve, can you hear me?
I need to turn Steve back on. We're getting some background noise.
Steve Malford is a large landowner, he and his family, timber, cattle, and Steve's in the nursery business. We also have Teddy Sealer down at the bottom.
Teddy's on the phone.
He's on the phone. And he's the cattle and timber. We have Roger Easterling in the fern business. Who else am I missing?
Well, I want to introduce two members of the Planning Commission, Joy Froelich, who's a member of the Putnam County Planning Commission, also a former farmer from South Putnam County, an agribusinessman, and who stepped away for a moment with Jerry Hafner, who is a member of the Planning Commission. With that said, Mr. Newbold, would you give us your thoughts and any questions you have or any concerns you have?
Well, I think right now Ag is in Ag 1 and Ag 2, which is Ag 1 is 10. You can have a dwelling on a 10-acre piece. Ag 2, one dwelling on 20 acres. A lot of these people here are large landholders, and I think a lower density would help.
Lower or higher? Do you want more people there or fewer people?
Say it again.
Do you want a higher density would be like 1 per 5 or 1 per 2. A lower density would be 1 per 40.
Yes. A lower density. In other
higher
words,
density.
A higher density.
Higher. In other words, if it were 1 per 5, it would be more reasonable. But in certain areas where people want to live, maybe it should be a little
higher.
Yeah.
And what would you define as those areas, Mr. Newbold?
As what?
What would you define as those areas? Where are they?
Well, people want to live nearer the urban areas, and everybody wants to live on the water, but not everybody, can get access to water or can afford it. So those are areas and near infrastructure, near roads. Now, I don't want to be the only one to speak.
Yeah, all of you feel free to join in. Steve, I've got you muted because of the background noise you've got there at the restaurant, but let me unmute you so you can speak.
You're talking about?
Yeah, got
Can
Steve
you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Well, I'm sorry about the noise. I joined a little bit late. I had to get my daughter to get me lined up into this. You know how the technology is. If you don't have children, then it's challenging at best. I want to kind of second what Mr. Newbold did. It's some of our property we have, we're at 1 to 10, or 1 unit per 10 acres or 1 unit per 20. And we have land on Hard Road, and we also have land on Lake Crescent that, if we had a opportunity to have more houses per acre, not that we're going to develop it anytime soon or anything like that, but what it would give us, it's like if we borrow money from Farm Credit, it gives us more loan value on our property. It makes our property worth more to have access for operating capital. And that for us would be a very good thing. And because some of our land, we're right across from a subdivision. There's basically 3 or 4 houses per acre, and the only thing that separates us is a hard road. So you go from one extreme to another.
It's just the land classification that separates you. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So as far as looking out for the future, this thing is every 15 years. If we had an opportunity to do something in the future, or if even if you just something came up and you were in a little bit of a bind, you needed to sell an acre or 2 acres to somebody something comes up that's, unexpected in life, you would have the opportunity to do that and sell a little piece and be able to keep everything else.
Okay, that might have to go through subdividing, but that's okay. I mean, we understand what you're saying there, and certainly the loan value is an interesting aspect we had not considered. Mr. Sealer, I know you're by phone. Can you give us your thoughts?
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to kind of reiterate what Steve said. I mean, I sat through the first comp plan all the way through to the spectator, and then I served time on the board, and y'all have made quite a few changes since I was there. But you got your density limited, and it hurts your property values. Like I say, whether you, not necessarily to develop it, but to have access to capital, you've got to be able to develop it. And some of the land development regulations, I mean, Ag 1, Ag 2, I'm got land on Lake Broward, I got land on 17, a lot of frontage on 17 and old 17 both. At some point in the future, it is developable land. I don't think it'll be any time in my lifetime, and maybe not my son's, maybe, who knows? I mean, nobody's got the crystal ball. But we need to be able to have a reasonable attempt to do it. And the original plan, they almost wanted you to have development beside you before they would grant you a upgrade. As Steve said, I got development across the road from me. You don't see a lot of it from the road, but the woods is full of people there. And it's an old antiquated subdivision. I don't want to see us get into those deals, but I do think we need the opportunity to reasonably be able to upgrade if you need to, and to help our property values. As far as the rest of the elements, we need to look at them all carefully. We need to have good growth and not bad growth. The LDRs are as important as the comp plan, but the comp plan is the basis. And you need a provision in the comp plan where you can get into the LDRs and do some good development if you need to in the ag community. I mean, the way it was set up originally, we had to fight to get those densities. They didn't want to give us that, and it was a pretty good battle just to get to there. But they were too restrictive. They hurt our values, and that's the biggest thing is we're looking for the future of the county. If growth comes in beside you, like I say, I'm surrounded, as Steve said, Lake Como's on one side, 17's on one side, old 17's on the other, and it's full of houses already. Some of them are in antiquated subdivisions and wasn't subject to good growth, but I deal with all the trespassing, the dogs, everything that come out of the subdivision, and yet as it is now, without an act of Congress to try to upgrade would be hard. That's kind of my views on the whole thing, and anything we can do to help you through this process, we're glad to do and want to be involved in the process.
Thank you, Mr. Sealer. Appreciate that. And please feel free to come in and as we go on. Mr. Easterling. I got to unmute you. I'm sorry.
Roger, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, you're fine now, Roger.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Roger.
All right. Well, everybody seems to be about on the same page with this thing. As far as each one, we had some property that we inherited, and because I had older siblings, they were in the process of wanting to sell it at the time, and we did try to do that. And because of the zoning of 1 to 20, we had a lot of people show interest if we could cut it down to 1 to 2 acres, but nobody could afford to buy 20 acres in that area to build a house on. So it did impact us a lot. So, and I built a house 15 years ago, and I had to buy 20 acres to build on in this area. So it makes it hard. So, and this land is what we've worked and paid taxes on, and it's kind of like a farmer's 401k. And so as we get older, this is what we're looking at to supplement our retirement in our old age. So the densities, I understand, for different people seem to be like, we have property on water. We'd like to see it a 1 to 1, on the lake, so it makes it affordable for people. But down the road, a pasture, 1 to 5 may work. So I don't think one plan fits everybody. Everybody kind of has their own interest of what they need. So, but that's kind of my take on it all. It just needs to be more where we can utilize our land for what each individual needs to do. Not that we're going to do it, we'll just be able to do it down the road.
Madam Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Well, maybe JR has something to say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we got you shown as Owen, but we know he's in the background. JR Newbold.
Yeah, I agree with the density discussion that's going on. And one size does not fit all, but just the theory that getting us on par with neighboring counties would be a huge. Am I getting feedback? Is my audio okay?
I think you're fine right now. Or
Okay.
Can you hear yourself?
Yeah, I had a little feedback. I'm going to move away just a touch, but I would like to see a couple other little odds and ends addressed for ag entities. I can see ag changing a bit in the future, especially as we have more people move to our area. Having some ability to do some commercial or retail in conjunction with ag. I think there's going to be increased agritourism in our area, and having flexibility built into the plan to be able to do more than just solid ag, having some other components available to the farmer would be important to myself, and I would imagine other agriculturalists as well.
Thank you. John, you had something to add?
Yeah, I have a couple of points. I really can't speak for anyone else. However, I did speak with Billy Morris, and he represents the Trednick property, which is a large tract, and there's like 9,000 acres in pine trees, and they are of the same mind of what we're speaking. I just wanted to pass that along. We have 2 or 3 other people that might join us as we go along, but another point I want to make is I think I can speak for every person that's already spoken. We want the county to be its best. And we all have somewhat personal interests, but we all have the best interest of the county at heart. We're all 2 or 3 generation farmers, and some of us 4 and 5, and even more. And we want this thing to be done right. We don't want it just to be self-serving. I think everybody that has spoken would agree with that statement.
Thank you, sir. As we look at the comp plan, I want to give Mr. Fernstein a chance to speak also. He has met with the commission one time before and gave us some very, very viable and very valuable information. Bob Fernstein, would you please introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your information?
Hey, I'm Bob Fernstein. I lived on the river for 30 years and am in the immediate past president of the Putnam Land Conservancy. So I might present a different view from some of the large landowners. Certainly there is an advantage to being able to subdivide land and to put more houses on that. If you were a large landowner and you wanted to keep the land in the family, there's potential advantage to actually downscaling, to give up some of your development rights, and which would mean the property would be less valuable, but it would also mean your property taxes are less. So it depends on what you want to do. If you wanted to potentially develop the land in the future, you'd like a higher density available to you. if you wanted to keep it in, let's say, in agriculture or silviculture, you might want actually a lower density, and to keep it that way, you can get a conservation easement and reduce your taxes and pass the land on with to the next generation.
Thank you, sir. And I know you had some issues and concerns, mainly concerns and some knowledge to share about sea level rise and those types of things that we're facing.
I've sent things to the commissioners, I've spoken to the commissioners before, and I mean, the St. Johns River's tidal is subject to sea level rise. We tend to think of sea level rise as a coastal phenomenon, but it's not only that. So the St. Johns River, at least as far up through Lake George, which includes Dunn's Creek, Crescent Lake, the tributaries up to the tidal influence, and all the wetlands adjacent to those tributaries and the main stem of the river are subject to sea level rise. Some of the projections are pretty scary. In your 15-year time frame, it's on the order of a foot to maybe 16 inches. If you're looking at another 30 years, let's say a 30-year mortgage, you might be looking at close to 2 feet of sea level rise. Some places like Dunn's Creek, a lot of the houses are inches above high tide when we get these fall high tides. So it's I think a really serious issue. It's pretty scary, some of the projections. As each time the projections are looked at anew and come out anew, particularly from NOAA, the projections are for an increase in the rate of sea level rise. So I would be concerned that the county would not be permitting development in areas that the county knows in the next decade or 2 or 3 might flood. And that's my concern. So I encourage that using projected sea level rise and what you can do with land takes into account the projected sea level rise.
Thank you, sir. And I see we've been joined by someone who is listed on my screen as Putnam Beautiful.
Hi, it's Nicole
Yes.
with Keep Putnam Beautiful. I'm here to observe. Hello,
Okay.
everyone.
Well, you're certainly welcome to join us as well, Nicole. Looking beyond agriculture and looking beyond even land use, or is there any other element in land use? I know most of you, all of you, pretty much own land in the rural area. And one of the areas we're looking at is rural residential and how we manage rural residential. And another area we're looking at is urban service, urban reserve. And I think if you've got any comment on that, please feel free to make it. These are land use categories that can undergird zoning, that do undergird our zoning. So we're looking at not just ag, we're looking at public facilities, utilities, conservation, all of the different areas, types of land that we have around the county. So if you have any input on any of those, please feel free to give those. Okay.
Can I make a comment, Susan Neal?
Yes, sir. You may make a comment, Mr. Sealer.
I don't think anybody in the ag community wants to develop undevelopable land. And when you get into the rural residential and that, I was familiar with all of it at one time. It's had changes. To me, to make educated comments and decisions, I will have to see you, and I'll get with you later, get a copy of what's currently there, where I can review it, and then we can make an intelligent decision. But nobody in ag wants to destroy the environment. And I agree with, undevelopable land should be undevelopable land. Some of that, you can put your densities there, and you might, through land development regulations and doing some clustering, benefit some from it, put it in open space. I mean, there's some options there to work with. You don't develop what shouldn't be developed, and yet you can take some advantage of it in the long run. I mean, you paid taxes on it for generations and still draw some value from it. So there's a lot of options on the table. To have it done by October 1st is going to be hard, but I'll do my best to read up, and I think
we appreciate that, Mr. Sealer, and I know the other members of the commission do, because we value citizen input very, very much. So looking at any other land use issues, know that we're looking at these things very closely. A lot of what we're going to ultimately see and ultimately define is going to come in the Land Development Code, which of course allows for the zoning overlay over these future land use areas. So beyond that, looking at things like transportation, what do you all see as any transportation issues you see?
For me, it's the same old, the same one my generation talks about, just the limited access north to south through the county, having that, the importance of completing the 4-lane, from one axis to another. It's done wonders to me. I think it's going to bring the right kind of development from, the coast in on 207, getting people in and out of the county. It will be important for job growth as well, not just general transport.
Anything else? Anyone else want to say anything about transportation? Okay, well then let's look at housing. The housing element is where we look at how we want to better use our housing capabilities and better provide housing opportunities in the county. So any comments or any thoughts on that?
Oh, I'll put my foot in my mouth. Sometimes I think we need to be careful of how much public supported housing we have. I know it's necessary, but we don't want to be too heavy in that area. And as I look at it, if we just want to be a bedroom community, this county, Jackie, would you get that? Hang on a second. If you can't support a county with the infrastructure it needs by just bringing in housing, you have to have more than housing. And we all know this, but it doesn't hurt to re-say it. Crescent City, it could easily become just a place for old people to live. But it needs to be more than that. Your tax base needs to be based on more than that.
Okay. Anybody else want to say anything about housing? Mr. Malphurs, let me unmute you. I can't do that on the glass. Wait a minute.
Steve needs to be unmuted.
There
you
we
go,
go.
Steve.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm on the PDAC committee for the representative for Crescent City High School to the school board for federal funds for the county. And one of the last meetings we were able to do before all the COVID-19 stuff hit, the homeless liaison for the school board, she said that per capita, Putnam County had more government housing than any other county in the United States. That, I think we're basically at our limit as far as that, because some of the other counties, they will they're filtering people this direction. You know, I think that's one thing I do believe that we have probably as a community to absorb, you know, through the cost of services and stuff. I think we're, you know, when you could say you're the #1 county in the entire nation, you know, I think that we've kind of reached our limit on that. It's just my opinion personally.
That's okay. We appreciate your opinion. That's what we're asking for. Anything else?
But setting up the code so that it does allow for multifamily affordable housing, something that is where, I don't know if they would be called duplex or small housing communities that fit the bill for folks who eventually will have some industry and some more business come here. But for the immediate future is going to be people coming in from St. Augustine, from Gainesville, from just north on 17, and being able to live in, you know, moderately priced, high density housing that I'm not sure is available to be built now under the current plan.
Okay. We appreciate that comment, John, JR. Anyone else on housing?
Well, I'd like to make a comment on what John said. You know, a lot of people come here if they're wanting to retire. You know, a lot of people don't have they don't want to spend their golden years mowing the grass every week. You know, he's saying to you, as far as some duplexes or a little bit more condensed housing, a lot of times people can come here and, you know, they come here to be able to go other places, you know, do activities and enjoy the beaches and stuff, and instead of having to take care of a yard. And I do think that is lacking in this county. You know, you drive through St. Johns County and, you know, you see the condominiums and stuff going up, or Southern Jacksonville, and we just don't have that here. And I think that's a missing ingredient that would be advantageous for the county to look into.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I remember growing up in Crescent City and hearing it said many times that we were perfectly positioned. We were 60 miles from Silver Springs, 60 miles from St. Augustine, and 60 miles from Daytona Beach. So I think we still have, of course, we still have that, but some of those things are different now. Looking at capital improvements, the main area of capital improvements that the county has invested in over the past few years has been the water sewer system that is serving East Palatka down to Horseman's Road and out 207 to the new fire station. So we've seen development in East Palatka as a result of that. We've seen commercial development go in as a result of that, because the restaurants that have opened up out there all are benefiting greatly from having that ability to hook into county water and sewer. So that's the one that has been mostly concentrated on. The 207 corridor is one of our busier transportation corridors. What are some of your thoughts, or do you have thoughts on how that could be extended, or what should be done to ameliorate that and make it better?
Well, if some type of industry comes in here, they would help us improve our infrastructure in that area. Crescent City, Joey could speak to this better than I. Crescent City has its own system, and I think it's pretty modern. But if some industry came in, it would not accommodate that. So they would have to
shows that are spin off
help.
Some Happy Days.
What?
4 shows that are
Help
spin off
improve
Some Happy
that.
Days.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Laverne and Shirley's.
I think that's another point to consider. That could possibly, an industry coming in could anchor a public utility system of some sort. Moving on from capital improvements, the next area we're looking at is conservation. And I know all of you are landowners that are close to the river or close to the lake, or have land that could be impacted by conservation. Anything you'd like to add? Mr. Fierstein, do you have anything to add on conservation? Oh, wait a minute, gotta unmute you. Could you look at the bottom left?
I think a lot of people, you can hear me now?
Yes, sir.
I think a lot of people moved to Putnam County because of the open space and the natural areas. And in workshops that the county has held, it seems like that's one of the things that almost everybody thinks should be preserved. So, like Mr. Malford referred to, that instead of having spread out housing, you maybe have clustered housing, and you preserve the open space that way. Also for conservation, I'll give a contrarian view that just bringing in houses costs the county money. When people move in, yes, they pay taxes, but you're also providing fire, police, roads, all those services. You don't have an impact fee to pay for those things. So development almost never pays for itself. It will cost you money. So how do you allow development and still have sufficient tax base to provide services to those people moving in?
Mr. Brown, do you want to speak to that?
Well, no, it's a good point. I mean, presently, I think one of the biggest holes in the budget every year is out of the general fund is the maintenance for dirt roads in this county. And that, you know, and I know the board constantly deals with that because that's an ongoing every year cost. You got to maintain those roads, and almost every board meeting that there's somebody showing up to say, I need my road maintained more often than it's being maintained. So it is a struggle, and we are all the surrounding counties have impact fees. We don't. They seem to be growing a lot faster than we're growing. It's it's a struggle for the county, and it's I probably doesn't address it. I'm sort of starting to get on my soapbox, which I don't need to get on to, but one of the issues we've had I recognize we have a dearth of multifamily housing. And one of the issues has been there's been no infrastructure to support it because you can't put an apartment complex on well and septic. We don't have any central utilities or very limited. Outside of Crescent City, Palatka, and now the East Palatka, that's it. And that's been one of the big limiting factors when I've talked to developers who wanted to do multifamily housing in this county. They can't find a piece big enough that has water and sewer on a paved road. That's been the difficulty. So those, and as we're going through this effort, one of the things that we are looking at from staff on where the future land uses need to change is we're looking at where the infrastructure is planned to go. We're looking at whole 17 corridor south from Palatka all the way down to Volusia County, because that will probably be done in the time frame of this plan. So we believe from staff, we're going to take a look and propose some changes to land use all along down to south end of the county. And then 207, we're running water and sewer up there right now. And I hear what the ag people are saying, that the densities are too low. Yeah, they're too low to support water and sewer. 1 unit per 10 acre, you can't pay for it. You end up supplementing, everybody else in the county supplements those costs because you don't have the densities. But, it's a balance to be done and to be made, but we're considering all those things. But I've heard some good ideas. The clustering and maybe transferable development rights are something that we have given lip service to in the existing plan. Maybe we need to take a closer look and try to strengthen some of those policies to get both development away from those vulnerable areas for flooding and sea level rise, as well as providing some opportunities for large landowners to profit from from their properties.
Thank you, Mike. The next area that we're looking at is economic development. Of course, economic development is the umbrella and the foundation of growth. How can we attract stronger tax base for Putnam County, but yet retain our rural nature? If anybody has that magic button, please let us know that.
I honestly don't think it's going to be a problem in the near future. I mean,
okay.
We really are. We're going to be so limited because there's not much of an east-west corridor. We have one. We don't have very close proximity to these large interstate systems. We only have so much developable riverfront. I think we're really positioned for a good mix of keeping that rural nature. I just feel like it's going to be natural. All the ag entities I know of, it's not a goal of let's sell property to profit. It's let's be able to improve the value of our property with the ability to do different things so that we can continue to farm for the long term and keep that rural nature that we love so much and that we feel like is going to be valuable to other people. So I'm not overly worried about us turning into this mushrooming of growth that comes along those interstate corridors. I just don't see it happening for many generations.
Thank you. Anything else on economic development?
I would like to make one comment to emphasize what Owen says, that a lot of people come here for the natural areas. And I think that's the true wealth of Putnam County. The river, the lakes, the open spaces, and people pay to come to places like that. There's Bartram paddling trails and Bartram trails and a lot of history and historic sites. People pay lots of money for that, or even to come and watch birds. So I think economic development doesn't necessarily mean what we normally think of development of houses or building things. I think it's keeping the good things that we have and then charging people to enjoy those.
Mike said something about infrastructure, and infrastructure is expensive, especially when you talk about water and sewer. But that's going to be a key. You talk about coming south on 17, that corridor, and then going out on 207. Infrastructure in that area, and that area is going to be expensive, but somehow it's going to have to be addressed. Crescent City can expand its infrastructure, but you can't do it without money. So,
a true statement. Housing. We've talked about housing. I just hadn't flipped that page right. Intergovernmental cooperation. Of course, we have our interlocal agreements with the municipalities and with the other county, state agencies within the area. Any thoughts on where we should go, how we should proceed? Are we doing it well now? Do we need to do it better? And what do we need to do if we need to do it better? Okay, it's perfectly okay. Believe me, we're dealing with that.
I'll make a comment about it.
Okay.
Crescent City, I look at it as like it's like a town in New England in a way, the way it runs its government, the way it takes care of the town. And then you have Palatka, and Interlaken, I don't think is quite as structured as Crescent City, but Crescent City is a little gem sitting out there with a government that truly works. And around that is all this great nature. And like Bob talked about, if you can take advantage of the nature that's there and capitalize on that, and take advantage of some of that structure that's in Crescent City, that would help us as the south end of the county.
I think what I'm hearing between Bob and John is we need to capitalize on that rural nature, but we don't need to exploit it.
That's right. In other words, if you create a venue that people want to come to nature, and that doesn't spoil nature necessarily.
Right. All right. Anything else on intergovernmental cooperation or any thoughts on that? I know
I don't know if it's intergovernmental cooperation, but the selling of visiting the natural resources of Putnam County, I don't think the Chamber of Commerce has done, I'm sorry to say this, I don't think they've done a very good job of promoting that. But I think that's the real wealth of Putnam County.
We're blessed with natural resources. Okay, recreation and open spaces. I know some of you have alluded to that as well in some of the comments that you've made. Anything else anyone would like to add on that? One of the things that has been improved in the county over the course of this current plan is the development of the bike trails, the development of hiking trails, the development of kayak and canoeing trails. And I think those are all great things. The county is doing a lot of work with boat ramps and with making sure that we are providing quality as well as just the quantity. They're looking at making sure we have adequate parking in the new boat ramp areas that are being developed. They're looking at just the open space utilization in the county. And we do have a good bit of open space and recreational area in Putnam County. But any thoughts on that, John? JR?
Yes, ma'am. Some of those things you mentioned, I think we, or a lot of us within the community, don't realize the impact of those assets and what they can be. It would be nice to somehow put some dollar figures to that we could show to our own community and have readily available, say when the chamber goes to sell our community, to say, hey, we do have these things. They have added this much to our community. Because, I mean, I'm traveling right now and seeing so much. There are so many people at these hotels that I'm staying in that are coming to these way out in the middle of nowhere places to ride bicycles, to hike, to view nature. So, I mean, we're not far from anything. These places I'm going are in the middle of nowhere, hundreds of miles from anything. And, I mean, we have made some progress, but I mean, I think most of our own citizens don't realize what an asset that is. We look at it and say, wow, what a waste of money. You know, paving all that bicycle trail in the woods. What's that good for? So I think tooting our own horn and putting some numbers to that and showing what it can do, what it has done and can do would be important.
Thank you. I know many of us wish we had been backpacking with you. You've been some places that I absolutely love. Anything else on recreation and open spaces? Like so many of you have said, our greatest asset runs right through the county. We've actually gone through all 9 of the elements of the comprehensive plan tonight. We appreciate you. I can't tell you how much. Having sat through 3 of these meetings now, they have all been beneficial. Your comments are being recorded, and they certainly will be taken into strong consideration as we go through our repetitive and ongoing review of the comprehensive plan. Yes, we've been working on it for a couple of months now. We had a little break because of a little virus, but we are back at it, and we're not putting anything in stone yet. The Planning Commission will have a document that we can look at in total within the next 6 weeks. And the big plan, the big job will come with the land development code and all that has to be done to that. But that comes next. That's not part of this process at all. But the things that you have been able to share with us tonight are things that many of which we had not heard. And new information and just an infusion of new ideas has been very, very beneficial. I know for me as chairman of the County Planning Commission, and I think our staff would echo that, as well as our consultant. Anything else for the good of the order before I ask our staff and consultant to wrap us up? Mike, final thoughts?
Yeah, I just don't think this is our last opportunity to make comments. We're going to try to hold a few more of these, but more importantly, if you have friends or that couldn't participate in this, you can contact my office directly, and send comments to the planning department. You can try to email me or send or call. Right now, one of my big focuses is to take input. So I want to hear from everybody. You may have something may pop into your mind tonight or tomorrow that you wish you would have said. Feel free to get a hold of me or the planning department and provide us those comments. I just want to make it clear this is not a one-shot opportunity. It's an ongoing process, and I want to hear comments and suggestions.
And any of our future meetings will be advertised.
Yeah, and we will
through
advertise.
the legal organ of the county, which is the Putnam or the Palaca Daily News, and also will be on Facebook. And I can certainly let Mr. Newbold know of any future meetings.
I will also pass. I'm willing to go out on the road if you've got a group of someplace in the that has a time, can get together and want to discuss it. I'm willing to avail myself to those opportunities too.
We certainly aren't averted to travel. We've been to Melrose, we've been here to Palatka, and now we're doing the first Zoom meeting. So, but we want to listen. We want to hear what you have to say. So, Brian?
Fabulous meeting. I have 8 pages of notes. Like Mike, I am more than willing to go to any far reaches in Putnam County. I've been to them all before. And I'm really happy to talk to people who are in the agribusiness. I grew up on a dairy farm. I'm a rural boy. So you put me in the big city, but you can't take me out of the farm. So this has been very, very heartwarming for me. Thank you.
Brian, can you briefly touch on our website?
Yeah, and you know, I've got we are updating it right now. You're gonna have to bear with me just for 1 second.
Well, he's looking. We have a website devoted specifically to the comprehensive plan update. And there is opportunity on that website for input. And there's information there how to do that in addition to what we've done. Mike, your email address is mike.brown at
Putnam-fl.com.
Okay, mike.brown at Putnam-fl.com. Putnam-fl.com. So mike.brown at Putnam-fl.com if you want to contact Mike.
And Madam Chairman, that web address for the website for the Putnam County Comprehensive Plan update is Putnam CP 2035 20.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. Putnam CP.
Putnam CP Comprehensive Plan. Go ahead.
2035.com.
Okay. Putnam CP 2035.com. Any uppercase letters?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all lowercase.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And my contact information is on that front page as well. So feel free to give me a holler. In addition to Mike, I'll get back to you as soon as humanly possible.
Well, we are devoting the month of July and the month of August only to this process with the Planning Commission. I know Planning and Development has a lot of things on their plate, but we do not have any cases to be heard at our August meeting. We will be meeting in a special workshop meeting on Zoom with the Planning Commission on July 22nd. And then our regular meeting, which will be on hopefully in person, but might also be on Zoom, which will be a public meeting, is the second Wednesday in August. We meet on the second Wednesday of every month at 4 p.m. normally in the commission chambers, but right now via Zoom. So thank you once again for taking the time out of your evening and your afternoon to give us your thoughts, give us your insights. Every one of you has given us something very valuable, and we appreciate it very, very much. With that said, unless there's anything else for the good of the order, I will say good night and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you. And
You're welcome.
that website does work, and for websites, it doesn't matter whether it's uppercase or lowercase.
Okay, thank you. And JR, please give the family out there my thoughts and love. I mean, this is family, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you very much. And I look forward to hearing more from you. And you all have a great evening.
All right. Good night, everyone.
We're out.
Good night.